بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. كلية الإمام الكاظم، أقسام الديوانية، قسم اللغة الإنجليزية، المرحلة الثالثة، مادة علم اللغة. أستاذ محمد حسين البدري. Today we are going to talk about certain rules. In the previous lecture we talked about certain points concerning how to make a diagram. And also we talked about the symbols. Okay. Today we are going to talk about certain rules. For example, phrase structure rules, lexical rules, and movement rules. We have so much explanations, but what is important is that there are certain points, okay, certain points with particular rules, with specific rules, okay, which are very important. So I'm going to explain certain points and also explain how to make a diagram, because what's important for this chapter is how to make a diagram, tree diagram. So here when we use a tree diagram format, we can think of it in two different ways. Here we have two different ways how to make a diagram, so this is not important. What's important is this second approach. So here we have two approaches. One is static representation, and the second is format, and the second is dynamic format. So what is dynamic here? What is important about from its name? When we say it is dynamic, it means what? It is generative. Dynamic, generative. Static, it means what? It is the opposite of dynamic. It means stable. But dynamic is what? It means generative. So this approach is very appealing because it would enable us to generate from its name. Because it's dynamic, so it will be what? It will be able to generate a very large number of sentences with what look like a very small number of rules. Remember, we talked about this point. We said that there are certain rules. There are very small number of rules which can make unlimited grammatical sentences, unlimited phrases. Remember, we talked about this point. For example, if we have this rule for phrase, noun phrase, if we put this rule for noun phrase, from this rule we can make many sentences. Okay, so this is what we mean. So these rules are called what? Phrase structure rules. They are called phrase structure rules. Okay, so these phrase structure rules, from its name here, as the name suggests, these phrase structure rules, this is the definition of phrase structure rules. These rules state that the structure of a phrase of a specific type will consist of one or more constituents in a particular order. The same idea here. We can use the phrase structure rules to represent the information of a tree diagram in another format. Okay, so this is the phrase structure rules. So when we say phrase structure rules, how many phrases do we have? We are going to talk about this. For example, here noun phrase, article, noun, noun phrase, article, noun. The same here. So according to this rule, so we will talk about this. According to this rule, a noun phrase, what? A noun phrase rewrites as an article followed by a noun. An article followed by what? A noun. What are the rules? Here are the rules. Okay, this is the summary of the rules. This is the explanation. The first rule, which is what? We talked about this phrase structure rules. The first rule is in the following set of simple and necessarily incomplete phrase structure rules. States that what? A sentence rewrites as a noun phrase and a verb phrase. Okay, this is phrase structure rules. A sentence rewrites as a noun phrase and verb phrase. Of course, in a sentence we have what? We have noun phrase and verb phrase. This is something absolute. Okay. The second rule states that a noun phrase rewrites as either an article plus an optional adjective plus a noun, or a pronoun or a proper noun. We talked about this. We talked about phrase, noun phrase. What does it consist? What does noun phrase consist of? What does verb phrase consist of? So here, what? Just rules. So this is the pattern. So the sentence, in the sentence we have noun phrase, verb phrase. This is the summary. This is the summary for the whole paragraphs. These paragraphs, okay? For the whole paragraphs, this is the summary for them. So in sentence we have what? Noun phrase, verb phrase. Noun phrase consists of what? Article or adjective. Sometimes we find adjectives, some optional. Noun, pronoun, or proper noun. Okay, remember this. Verb phrase, we have verb or noun phrase. Okay, prepositional phrase, adverb. These are optional. Sometimes we find them, sometimes we don't find them. PP, prepositional noun phrase. Okay, prepositional noun phrase. So this is the what? This is the phrase structure rules. So phrase structure rules. Okay, these rules state that the structure of phrase of a specific type will consist of one or more constituents in a particular order. Here we have these rules. Here we explain them. Okay. Lexical rules. So now we know that the sentence has noun phrase, verb phrase, or prepositional phrase. Sentence, noun phrase, verb phrase. You see? We are going to talk about this and explain it in a tree diagram. Then we have lexical rules, phrase structure rules, generate structures. See? Phrase, we talked about this. Phrase structure rules. What do they generate? Generate structures. In order to turn those structures into recognizable English, we also need what? Lexical rules. That what do the lexical rules do? What they do? They specify which words can be used when we rewrite constituents such as noun, for example. The first rule in the following set states that a proper noun rewrites as Mary or George. Okay, so it's very easy. So proper noun. What is a proper noun? Of course, Mary, George, Ahmed, Ali, Tom, Zahra, Fatma, etc. Noun, in general, noun: girl, dog, boy, the door, the pen, the book. Article: a and they. Pronoun: it, you, she, he, they, we. Verb, lexical verb: follow, help, so, see, read, write, watch. You see? واحد يقول شنو الفائدة? What is the benefit of this? We will know and we will see. What is the benefit of these rules? We can rely on these rules to generate the grammatical sentence. So, this is the benefit. When we rely on these rules, we can generate what? Grammatical sentences. This makes you be able to what? To make grammatical, to generate grammatical sentences. For example, here we have what? From 1 to 6 grammatical. And here from 7 to 12 what? Any grammatical. So, here, a dog followed the boy. A dog followed the boys. A dog followed the boy. You see? Grammatical. But here, dog followed boy. Wrong. Dog is what? Is what? Noun. And we have here proper noun. It's not, dog is not a proper noun. Okay? And if we come back and see what is, if you remember, what is in noun phrase, we have article plus what? Noun. So here we have article plus noun. You see? Okay? The same here. The boy. Verb phrase, and here noun phrase. The boy. Here, boy. Okay? If we can make this grammatical, yes, we can say Ali followed Ahmed. You see? So we have here proper noun. No problem. Okay? So this what tells you how to make grammatical sentences. This shows how to make good, well-formed grammatical sentences. Mary helped George. cannot say they help you boy. You see, George saw the dog. You see, George proper noun. So verb, the dog, see, complete noun phrase. The boy helped you. But you can say George married dog. George married. No. Where is the verb here? Okay, no verb. But here the boy helped you. So okay. Helped at the beginning, we don't have helped. This is lexical verb. George the dog. See? It followed Mary. Yes, for example, the dog, the cat followed Mary. But here you see it saw, you can say you saw it. It saw you. And the cat, the dog saw you. Okay, pronoun. Okay, you see, you saw it. It saw. Oh, Mary George helped. Mary George helped. Okay, you can say Mary helped George. You see, we don't have a proper noun plus a proper noun. These are the rules. So the rules show you how to make well grammatical sentences. You see here, we have this. This is the gist of them. We have subject, sentence, noun phrase and verb phrase. Okay, a dog followed a boy. How to make it in a tree diagram? Noun phrase, verb phrase. Noun phrase, a dog consists of what? Article, a, and noun what? Dog, clear. Verb phrase, we have verb, and from verb phrase we have what? Noun phrase, which is article, noun. Okay, so okay, a dog followed the boy. If we want to make this dog followed boy, if we want to make it, for example, dog, yes, dog followed boy, we can say sentence, noun phrase, verb phrase. So, but here dog, where is the article? If we say article noun, there is no article. You see? واحد يقول مثلا proper noun dog. It is a name of person, for example. It is Ahmed, Ali, George, Mary. No. It is a pronoun. No. So it is wrong. You see? So when you know how to make a tree diagram, when you know the symbols, you will know that this sentence is grammatical. Sentence. Okay, we are used to doing this subject because we are teaching grammar. Yes, so sentence here, another sentence, easy sentence, noun phrase and verb phrase. This is what? Always noun phrase, verb phrase. Pronoun, you. Pronoun. It is not a proper noun, or it is article noun. You see? Pronoun, you. Verb phrase, verb, so. And noun phrase, only in noun phrase we have pronoun. You see? They are very easy. Then we go to movement rules. The very small set of phrase structure rules. From its name, movement means as if we have what? We have a movement of a branch of the tree. يعني غصن. So with a movement, we move it. How to move it? Let's see. The very small set of phrase structure rules just described is a simple or sample of what a more complex phrase structure of grammar of English with many more parts will look like. So these rules can be treated as a representation of the underlying or deep structures of sentences in English. One feature of these underlying structures is that they will generate sentences with a fixed word order, thus convenient for creating declarative forms. Okay, هذا حشو يعني بتفهمه. So you will help Mary. So we have this sentence, you will help Mary, but not for what? Not for making interrogative forms as used in questions. Will you help Mary? Okay. And then شنو الجس هذا الزبدة مال هنا gist? The gist is that what we have seen is that we can make tree diagram for this such sentences. You will help Mary. I am going to Baghdad, for example. I will go. Tom help Mary. So, okay, but what about the question? For example, if we have this question, can we make a tree diagram for it? Yes. In making the question, you see here, we move. This is the point. هاي الزبدة كلها مال هذا. In making the question, we move one part of the structure to a different position. This is what this process is based on a movement rule. Okay, so this is the definition, and this is the information about what is a movement rule. It means that we move, okay, we move part, okay, of the structure, a branch of the tree, to a different position, to the beginning. For example, if we talk about this process, we need to expand our phrase structure, so we need it. We need this, we need to expand it to include what? An auxiliary verb, which is auxiliary. This is what? Abbreviation, aux. It means auxiliary verb as a part of the sentence. This is illustrated in the first rewrite rule below. Here we have the auxiliary verbs, they are called also helping verbs. You are familiar with this, you know this. Okay, so this is the rule. Sentence, noun phrase, auxiliary, verb phrase. Auxiliary can, could, should, will, would. Okay, verb in general: follow, help, see, read, write, etc. With these components, we can specify a simple movement rule that's involved in the creation of one basic type of question in English. So here we have this kind. This is what? This kind of movement rule. What is the rule? For example, here we have sentence, noun phrase, and verb phrase. Noun phrase, auxiliary, verb phrase. Auxiliary at the beginning. Of course, when we want to make a question, we bring the auxiliary at the beginning. So auxiliary, noun phrase, verb phrase. That's all. Okay. You see here? This is the normal. We know this. This is the normal. We talked about this in detail. For example, sentence, noun phrase, auxiliary, because this is auxiliary. You see? Verb phrase, alone, auxiliary, alone. Not from what? Verb phrase, alone. Well, verb phrase, verb, and noun phrase, proper noun. So you will help Mary. You will help Mary. How to make it a question? For example, just you see, sentence, auxiliary, noun phrase, verb phrase. So this what? You move this, okay, you move this part at the beginning. It's very easy. That's all. Okay? You move this part, just you. Will you help Mary? See? You move this part at the beginning. That's all. Here we have another example. Can you see the dog? Should George follow you? You see? Could the boy see it? Etc. They are very important, of course. Back to recursion. Remember recursion, we talked about it. It is what? It is repeated. It means it is something which is repeated. The simple phrase structure rules listed earlier have no recursive elements. No recursive, no repetition. Each time we start to create a sentence, we only create a single sentence structure. We actually need to be able to include sentence structures within other sentence structure. This is the point. What about this? Here, as if the writer, you tries to tell us that what we talked about is just simple sentence. What about if we have sentence within sentence? How can we make a tree diagram? شلون نسوي لهم tree diagram? If we have a sentence within sentence, if we have many sentences. In traditional grammar, these sentence structures were described clauses. They are called clauses. Okay, clause is what is smaller than sentence, sometimes called sentence clause. You will have this in the fourth stage, inshallah. We know, for example, that Mary helped George is a sentence. Mary helped George, simple sentence. We can put this sentence inside another sentence, beginning with, for example, Kathy knew that Mary helped George. You see? Sentence within sentence. And being tendency recursive, we can put this sentence inside another sentence. Also sentence within sentence. So we can say, John believed, you see? John believed that Kathy knew that Mary helped George. You see here we have three sentences. So one may ask, how can we make a tree diagram for more than sentence together? We will see. In these sentences, 2 new proper nouns and 2 new verbs have been used. We have to expand our earlier set of lexical rules to include the proper noun, John, Kathy, and verb, believed, knew. After verbs such as believe and know, as in these examples, the word that introduced as a complement phrase. We will see this in detail here. Here you see, Mary helped George, 1 sentence. Kathy knew that Mary helped George, 2 sentences. John believed that Kathy knew that Mary helped George. So how can we make for them? Can make 3 diagram. Here, complement phrase. They are called complement phrases. So the word that, as used in this example, is called a complementizer. Okay, so a complementizer, that is a complementizer. So it's easy. C, symbol for that. It is what? C. So what is C complementizer? يعني completes. من اسمها completes. The role of that as a complementizer is to introduce a complement phrase. What is the role of that? To what? To introduce a complement phrase, which is what? CB. So CB here, CB is what? A complement phrase. For example, in the second sentence, Kathy knew, we can identify 1 CB, which contains that plus Mary helped George. We already know that Mary helped George is a sentence. So we are now in a position to define a CB in the following way. So what is CB? Complement phrase realized as a complementizer on a sentence. CB, CS. CB, CS. Okay. Complement, see? Complement or complementizer plus sentence. We can also see from the same sentence that the complement phrase comes after the verb knew. This means that we are using the CP as a part of verb phrase, as in knew that Mary helped George. So there must be another rule. So we have here another rule. A verb phrase realized as a verb and complement phrase VB VCB. Okay. ده ممكن شو دخته صح، لكن هنا أوضح. In this way we have here's sentence, noun phrase, verb phrase. Noun phrase, verb phrase. Verb phrase, in verb phrase we have what? We have verb and CB. And CB what? We have complementizer and sentence. This is simple. We will see this. I hope it's clear here. I need to make it small, right? Yes. So here we have what? We have John. You can read it. John believed that Kathy knew that Mary helped George. How to make it? Here we have sentence, noun phrase, verb phrase. You see? Noun phrase, verb phrase. No problem. Noun phrase, verb phrase. Noun phrase, verb phrase. Noun phrase, verb phrase. What is in verb phrase? Noun phrase, which is what? God, what's the problem? We have John, noun phrase, which is proper noun, it is John. John believed. Verb phrase, it has what here? It has verb, this verb, believed. And it has what? CB. This is CB. You see? Complement. Okay. Complement. We have here. Complementary phrase. CB. How is CB? CB, it has what? Complementizer, and it has sentence. You see? Complementizer that, and it has sentence. The same. When we have sentence here, the same you will do it as if it is from the beginning. So you have sentence. This what? Kathy knew that Mary helped George. So here we have what? Sentence within sentence. Also from the sentence, the same rule. We have noun phrase, which is what? Pronoun cat. And verb. Noun phrase, verb phrase. The same. You see? Noun phrase, verb phrase. Noun phrase, verb phrase. And verb phrase we have what? Verb. And we have complementizer here. Complement and phrase. Or complement phrase. Here we have complementizer. See? And here we have what? Subject. See? Subject. And from subject we have what? The last sentence, this Mary helped George. We have noun phrase, verb phrase, proper noun. Verb phrase we have verb help, and we have noun phrase, proper noun George. Proper noun George. You see? Very easy. Just you have to have a pen, okay, and a paper. You have to work on them. Okay? If you know from the beginning of the chapter, if you know the symbols and how to work on tree diagram, how to work on symbols, how to know these are what kind of phrases, it will be very easy for you. Okay, you can read here some sentences, some questions, and if you have any question you can ask. Thank you so much. We finish with the book. Okay, and I will tell you something when I post this video.